So we created a basic drum groove kind of the hard way. One of the cool tools in Logic is a tool called the Ultrabeat, and it's an amazing software synthesizer slash sequencer that allows you to use MIDI to fire audio samples. In order to use it, you need to set up a new software instrument track. Once that track opens, you need to locate the Ultrabeat synth by going over to the I/O, clicking on it, and looking for Ultrabeat drum synth. When it opens, it looks a bit daunting if you've never used it before, but really it's pretty straightforward. On the side here, on the left, you'll see what looks like a keyboard. Each sample is tied to a note on your keyboard controller. All these samples can be changed if you want over time. Patterns get created within this particular tool. Those patterns can be heard by clicking on this button. If you want to change the preset patterns, there's a whole list of them here. The ones that are a lighter color are actually programmed. The ones below are empty. You can hear how it changes as it's going through. If I wanted to add more kick drum, for example, I could click on these little buttons and add a few more hits. That's one way to program it. I could also move to the full view, and you can actually see in the full view all of that closed hi-hat that's going. So if I wanted to have a subtle low congas happening too, I could actually put a whole pile in there if I wanted to. So programming this is relatively simple. And right now I'm triggering what looks to be a 32 bar or 32 beat pattern, which is basically two measures. If I wanted to change that down to just a 1 bar loop, if you will, I could change this number to 16 and it would only play up to 16, then it would repeat. Okay. Now one of the things that's interesting about this particular software is that you can actually add a whole series of different types of kits. And here we got a list of them, and there's many of them. We have the African kit, and you'll see all the samples along the side here actually will change. And now we can go to one of these grooves, and you have a completely new sound. It's pretty sweet. So say that's the kit that you want and you happen to like that particular groove. You need to put that groove into the arrange window. And so what we end up doing is taking this little box right here. This is the pattern that we just made. This box, if I grab it, I can drag it over into the arrange window. And it basically puts the MIDI notes in there for me. And if I want this to be played exclusively, I can turn on in the Ultrabeat the pattern mode, and what that's going to do is it's going to tell Ultrabeat to play what's written here. So if I hop in, and I just missed it because of that silly thing, so I'll stop and go back and check that again. Now I can hear my groove, I hope. So if you're doing a remix, you obviously could get quite a different kind of sound. When you're in here, if you haven't used the MIDI window yet, it's an incredibly powerful tool. You can move notes around to fire on different parts of the beat, have different kinds of sounds. You can change the velocity of these particular pitches. It's very, very powerful. Inside the Ultrabeat itself, for every sample, you can actually change the sound of that sample by using the synthesis that's built inside the Ultrabeat itself. I can change the pitch of the sample. I can add an LFO. I can alter the overall volume of the groove too. It's a very powerful tool. What you also want to be able to do, and what most people do in order to create their own unique sound, is they go to a drum kit and they select the drag and drop kit. And what happens with the drag and drop kit is it creates an empty palette here for. There are no samples loaded and no patterns. So ultimately you want to spend a little bit of time building your own drum set in here. And the way you do that is you load samples. Inside this window you'll see it says no sample loaded. So I can go over here, I can go load sample. And in this case, I can grab samples from inside Ultrabeat, or I can go looking within this window for samples that I may have loaded onto my hard drive, for example. So I'm going to go into my remix tutorial site and I'm going to grab a sample clap. Now that clap is actually firing right inside there. I can actually do the clap backwards. I can do it forwards. I can do all sorts of different things with it. And right now, if I want that to fire, I could say that's sample 1. I could rename this, which is probably a good idea. And then, if I want to go into the full view, I can tell the clap to fire at specific times. I can also right-click and I can tell it when to actually fire by clicking on that. So if I wanted to go on every downbeat, for example, it's going to fill it up. So you can actually get that to be populated much faster. I have an exciting clap part. And if I wanted to, try that reverse thing and see what it does to my sound. There's all sorts of things you can do this by changing the sound of this whole thing. So you can see that there's just with that one little sound of a clap, you can create all sorts of different kinds of colors. So I would suggest if you're doing a remix, find one-shot samples. One-shot samples are the ones that are just going to, it's not a loop, it's just going to be heard right away. Load them up in here and then start building your grooves. Once you get the grooves that you like, you can save the groove and they'll end up in it. You'll take that pattern, grab this little box, drag it up into your range window, and now we have the clap that's going to happen. You notice how it was firing because it's MIDI. The first time I ran through this from my old pattern, which was the African drums, I've turned this off. So I have to keep, when that kit is built, you got to use the same kit throughout or build another Ultrabeat if you want to change up the sound significantly. But you got 25 samples in here, so you could actually build a couple kits in here relatively easily and be able to have a unique sounds change throughout the piece as it's going through. So, Ultrabeat, great tool. If you like it, use it. If not, do the old-fashioned way. But I think you're going to find that this is probably the easiest way to get a really sick groove happening right away.